The most dangerous prison is not made of iron bars and concrete walls. It's built of infiltrated beliefs that you've accepted without investigation, beliefs that limit your potential and sabotage your success every single day. I've spent decades studying the most successful individuals across industries, and I've discovered something shocking. 97% of people live their entire lives imprisoned by thoughts that were planted in their minds by others' parents, teachers, friends, and a society that benefits from your mediocrity. My friends, what would your life look like if you could identify and eliminate these sabotaging beliefs? The beliefs that whisper you can't succeed, you're not good enough, or that's impossible for someone like you. These silent assassins of achievement operate in the background of your consciousness, making decisions for you before you even realize what's happening. Today, I'm going to share with you a profound truth that the most successful individuals I've ever studied have discovered. True transformation happens in silence, away from the noise and opinions of others. When you systematically investigate and reprogram the beliefs that have infiltrated your mind, this isn't just another motivational talk. What I'm about to share will fundamentally change how you understand your own potential and the invisible forces that have been holding you back. The difference between those who achieve extraordinary success and those who live lives of quiet desperation often comes down to this single factor: the ability to recognize and reconstruct limiting beliefs. In this video, I will teach you exactly how to identify these infiltrated beliefs, silence the external noise that continues to plant them, and build yourself anew through deliberate, conscious thought selection. This is the hidden key to unlocking your potential that few will ever discover. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, do so now. The principles I share have transformed countless lives, and I don't want you to miss a single insight that could be the breakthrough you've been searching for. Let me tell you why this matter of infiltrated beliefs requires your immediate attention. Your mind, my friend, is constantly under siege. From the moment you wake until you fall asleep, you are bombarded with over 10,000 messages daily, each one attempting to plant itself in your subconscious mind. These messages come disguised as casual comments from colleagues, advertising slogans, social media posts, news headlines, and even well-meaning advice from loved ones. The true problem isn't merely exposure to these messages, it's that we've been conditioned to accept them without examination. We've become mental consumers rather than mental producers. And this passive consumption has created a crisis of original thinking that manifests as mediocrity, frustration, and lives half-lived. Consider this. Have you ever wondered why some people seem destined for greatness while others, despite similar or even superior talents, never rise above average? I've studied this phenomenon extensively, interviewing over 500 of America's most successful individuals. The distinction wasn't intelligence, opportunity, or luck, it was their relationship with beliefs. The majority who fail to achieve their potential share one critical characteristic: they allow their beliefs to be infiltrated and dictated by outside forces. They accept limiting thoughts without question. Success requires special connections. Financial abundance comes at the cost of family. Creative pursuits are impractical. You must sacrifice health for wealth. These are the invisible chains that bind potential. I recall meeting a brilliant young woman in Chicago who had remarkable abilities as an inventor. When I asked why she hadn't pursued her innovations commercially, she replied, "My father always said that patents and business were men's territory. I suppose I just accepted that." This single infiltrated belief had cost her and perhaps the world countless contributions. Or consider Thomas, a factory worker I interviewed in Pittsburgh. Despite having developed a method that could increase production efficiency by 30%, he never shared it with management. "Why? People like me don't get recognized for ideas," he told me. That's what the college men are paid for. Another life constrained by an infiltrated belief that was never his own. What's truly troubling is how these beliefs operate beyond our awareness. They work silently in the background, filtering opportunities, justifying inaction, and rationalizing mediocrity. They become so integrated into our thinking patterns that we mistake them for our own authentic viewpoints. We defend them as just the way things are without realizing they were planted there by others who may have had entirely different motives and circumstances. Conventional approaches to personal development failed precisely because they don't address this root cause. Positive thinking alone cannot overcome deeply embedded limiting beliefs. Setting goals without examining the beliefs that frame them is like planting seeds in contaminated soil. Visualization techniques falter when the subconscious mind holds contradictory beliefs about what's possible. The silent majority struggle perpetually because they're attempting to build new lives using borrowed beliefs, many of which were designed to keep them safely average. Meanwhile, the minority who achieve extraordinary results have mastered a different approach. They've learned to build themselves in silence, deliberately investigating and reconstructing their belief systems away from the constant noise of external influence. What I am about to share with you represents the culmination of my life's work, a systematic approach to liberating yourself from infiltrated beliefs and constructing a mind primed for extraordinary achievement. This isn't theory or academic philosophy. It's a practical methodology extracted from the lived experiences of the world's most accomplished individuals. During my extensive research, I discovered something remarkable. The most successful people across all fields, industry titans, inventors, artists, and leaders, all practiced a similar discipline, though they called it by different names. Some referred to it as mental housekeeping, others belief auditing, and still others simply called it getting clear. What they were all describing was the deliberate investigation and reconstruction of their belief systems. I've synthesized their approaches into what I now call silent self-construction, a methodical process of building yourself away from the noise and influence of others, while systematically examining the beliefs that have infiltrated your mind without your conscious permission. You see, while others are broadcasting their intentions and seeking validation from the crowd, the truly successful are engaged in this quiet, transformative work. They understand that real power comes not from announcing your plans, but from the silent reconstruction of your mental foundation. What makes this approach different is that it works from the inside out rather than the outside in. Most conventional wisdom suggests changing your circumstances to change your life, but those who achieve enduring success understand that you must first change your beliefs to transform your circumstances permanently. I've had the privilege of sitting with some of the wealthiest industrialists in America, and none were born to their positions. What separated them from others wasn't just their actions, but their core beliefs about what was possible. Henry Ford told me directly, before I built better cars, I had to build better beliefs. Most men are blocked not by their capabilities, but by their convictions about their capabilities. Andrew Carnegie shared similar wisdom when he said, "The beliefs in a man's mind are more valuable than the money in his bank." These weren't just philosophical musings. These men had tested these principles in the laboratory of real-world achievement. My friends, I am not claiming that changing your beliefs is easy work. It is not. But I can assure you it is the most worthwhile endeavor you will ever undertake. The methods I will share require discipline, honesty, and courage. They demand that you temporarily separate yourself from the opinions and influences that have shaped your thinking until now. This isn't about permanent isolation, it's about strategic solitude for the purpose of mental clarity and reconstruction. What you're about to discover is something that few will ever learn. That between the stimulus of life's challenges and your response to them exists a sacred space. In that space lies your power to examine your beliefs, Discard those that limit you, and construct new ones aligned with your highest potential. The path ahead may at times feel uncomfortable, as all growth does. But I promise you this, on the other side of that discomfort waits a version of yourself freed from the mental constraints that have held you captive. You're about to embark on the most important construction project of your life, not of a physical structure, but of the mental architecture that will determine everything you become. The process of building yourself in silence while investigating your infiltrated beliefs rests upon several foundational principles. These aren't merely techniques or quick fixes, they are profound truths about how the human mind operates and how beliefs shape our reality. The first principle is what I call conscious mental filtration. Every single day, your mind is bombarded with thousands of thoughts and external suggestions. Most people operate with wide-open mental gates, allowing any and all thoughts to enter and take root. But those who achieve greatness practice rigorous mental filtration. Think of your mind as you would your home. Would you allow just anyone to enter, bringing whatever they wish inside? Of course not. Yet most people exercise less discretion with their thoughts than they do with their living rooms. Consider your mind as a garden where thoughts are seeds. Every thought that takes root will eventually bear fruit in your external circumstances. The successful minority understands that they must become vigilant gardeners, carefully selecting which thought seeds to nurture and which to remove before they can take root. I recall meeting with Thomas Edison during one of his most productive periods. When I asked him how he maintained such creative output despite repeated setbacks, he shared something remarkable. "Hill," he said, "each morning I conduct what I call my belief inspection. Before I begin my work, I examine any negative thoughts that have tried to enter my mind overnight. I question their origin and their truth. Most importantly, I ask whether they serve my purpose. If they don't, I deliberately replace them with thoughts that do." This practice isn't merely positive thinking, it's strategic mental governance. Edison understood that thoughts become beliefs, beliefs determine actions, and actions create results. By governing the entry point, the thoughts themselves, he controlled the entire chain of creation. A powerful metaphor for this principle is the eagle's nest. Eagles build their nests high above the noise and danger of the ground. From this vantage point, they can see approaching threats from a distance and prepare accordingly. Similarly, when you practice mental filtration from a position of heightened awareness, you can identify limiting thoughts before they become entrenched beliefs. The second principle is belief archaeology. Most of your most powerful beliefs weren't consciously chosen, they were inherited or absorbed during formative experiences, particularly in childhood. To transform your life, you must become an archaeologist of your own mind, carefully excavating these beliefs and examining their origins. Imagine your mind as an ancient city, with your current thoughts and behaviors built upon layers of old beliefs. Some of these foundational beliefs may be cracked or fundamentally flawed, causing everything built upon them to be unstable. The work of belief archaeology requires patient, methodical excavation to reach these deeper layers. I worked with a businessman in Detroit who couldn't understand why he sabotaged every venture, just as it approached significant success. Through deliberate belief archaeology, he discovered a childhood memory he'd completely forgotten. His father, after a brief period of financial success, had abandoned the family. As a child, he had formed the belief that success leads to abandonment. This buried belief was silently directing his adult behaviors, causing him to retreat whenever success appeared imminent. Once excavated and exposed to the light of conscious examination, this belief lost its power over him. The process of belief archaeology isn't always comfortable. You'll uncover thoughts that may surprise or disturb you, but remember the words of Andrew Carnegie, "The man who knows himself owns himself." True ownership of your life begins with owning your beliefs, especially those that have operated outside your awareness. The third principle is deliberate belief construction. Once you've filtered negative inputs and excavated limiting beliefs, you must construct new beliefs with conscious intention. This isn't wishful thinking or affirmations, it's the systematic building of new mental models based on evidence, possibility, and purpose. Think of yourself as an architect designing a cathedral of thought. Each belief is a stone in this structure. The placement of each stone matters, as does its quality and fitness for its position. The most successful individuals I've studied all engage in this deliberate construction process. Henry Ford once told me, before I could build a motor company that would put America on wheels, I had to construct the belief that such a thing was possible. Everyone around me insisted it couldn't be done. I had to silence those voices and deliberately build the belief first in my own mind. A powerful illustration of this principle is the metamorphosis of a butterfly. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar doesn't merely grow wings, it completely dissolves its old structure and reforms into something entirely new. This transformation occurs in protective silence, away from external interference. Similarly, your most profound personal transformations will happen in periods of strategic solitude, where you can dissolve old beliefs and construct new ones without constant external input. The fourth principle is silent implementation before public declaration. There's a reason why truly successful people often work quietly on their most important projects. They understand that premature exposure to outside opinions can contaminate their belief construction process. Consider a seed planted in soil. It does its most critical development underground, out of sight, before ever pushing above the surface. If you dig it up repeatedly to check on it or expose it to harsh conditions too soon, you interrupt its growth. Your new beliefs require a similar period of protected development. I spoke with a novelist who had tried for years to complete his book. He would begin with enthusiasm, tell everyone about his project, receive their opinions and helpful advice, and soon find his original vision corrupted and his motivation diminished. Finally, he tried a different approach, writing in complete privacy for 6 months, telling no one about his project. The manuscript was completed in half the time of his previous attempts and went on to become a bestseller. The ancient wisdom bears this out. Be not hasty in words. Be like the fruit tree that is known by its fruit, not by its blossoms. Your results will speak louder than any declarations of intent. Build yourself in silence until your transformation becomes evident through your achievements. I'd like to hear from you. Which of these principles resonates most strongly with your current situation? Leave a comment below, sharing which aspect of building yourself in silence speaks most directly to your journey. Now, I can almost hear the thoughts forming in your mind. But Mr. Hill, you may be thinking, this approach of building in silence sounds isolating. Don't we need the input and support of others to grow? This is a natural concern, and one worth addressing directly. Let me be clear, building yourself in silence doesn't mean cutting yourself off from valuable relationships or constructive input. Rather, it means creating a protective space around your developing beliefs until they're strong enough to withstand scrutiny and challenge. It means being selective about whose opinions you invite into your mental space, particularly during periods of significant personal reconstruction. Consider this. Have you ever shared an exciting new idea or goal, only to have it deflated by someone's skepticism or practical advice? Have you noticed how quickly a spark of possibility can be extinguished by what others consider realistic thinking? This happens because fragile new beliefs are vulnerable to the infiltration of doubt, especially from sources we trust or respect. The successful people I've studied aren't antisocial, far from it, but they've learned to distinguish between strategic solitude and isolation. Strategic solitude is purposeful, temporary, and focused on construction. Isolation is avoidant, prolonged, and focused on protection. The former builds strength, the latter prevents growth. You might also wonder, isn't it arrogant to think I know better than everyone else? Shouldn't I value the wisdom of others? This thoughtful objection reflects the proper humility that often accompanies true achievement. The answer lies in understanding the difference between seeking wisdom and outsourcing your thinking. When you gather information from others after establishing your own clear mental foundation, you can evaluate their input against your core beliefs rather than simply adopting their perspectives wholesale. This isn't arrogance, it's intellectual self-ownership. The most successful leaders I've interviewed all share this quality. They listen widely but filter selectively, measuring all input against their carefully constructed belief systems. Perhaps you're thinking, this process sounds lengthy and difficult. Do I really need to investigate all my beliefs? Can't I just focus on positive thinking? I understand this hesitation. In a world that promises quick fixes and overnight success, the deliberate work of belief examination seems unnecessarily thorough. But ask yourself this: if you've tried positive thinking techniques yet still find yourself repeating the same patterns or hitting the same invisible ceilings, what might that tell you? Could it be that affirmations layered over unexamined limiting beliefs are like fresh paint over rotting wood? The structure may look temporarily improved, but the fundamental weaknesses remain. The process I'm describing isn't quick, but it is thorough and lasting. And doesn't your life deserve that level of attention? Haven't you spent enough time trying approaches that deliver temporary motivation rather than permanent transformation? Some of you may be concerned about the practical aspects. How do I create this silence in a busy life filled with responsibilities and constant connection? This is perhaps the most relevant challenge in our modern world, where solitude is increasingly rare and continuous input is the norm. The silence I'm advocating doesn't necessarily require physical isolation or hours of meditation, though both can be valuable. It requires creating mental space, periods where you consciously disconnect from external influences to reconnect with your own thoughts. This might be 20 minutes in the morning before checking your phone, a lunch break without social media, or an evening walk without audio input. The specific form matters less than the quality of attention you bring to your own thought patterns during these periods. Finally, you may wonder, what if I discover beliefs that are deeply embedded but clearly limiting? How do I actually change something so fundamental? This question reveals wisdom. You understand that recognition is only the first step in transformation. Changing core beliefs requires more than intellectual recognition. It requires emotional processing, repeated counter-evidence, and consistent alternative behavior patterns. But the first and most crucial step is bringing these beliefs into conscious awareness. A belief operating in darkness has almost limitless power. The same belief examined in the light of consciousness immediately begins to lose its grip. Remember that your mind, remarkable instrument that it is, has been programmed over decades through childhood experiences, cultural messages, educational systems, and relationship patterns. Reprogramming requires patience and persistence. The good news is that the same neuroplasticity that allowed these beliefs to form also allows them to be reconstructed. The question isn't whether this approach demands effort. It does. The question is whether the freedom it offers is worth that effort. I submit to you that there is no more worthwhile investment than the deliberate investigation and reconstruction of the beliefs that shape your every experience of life. Now let us examine how these principles work together as an integrated system for personal transformation. Understanding each principle individually is valuable, but their true power emerges when they operate in concert. Creating a comprehensive approach to building yourself in silence while investigating infiltrated beliefs. Think of this integrated system as a master architect designing and constructing a magnificent building. The architect doesn't merely draw beautiful plans or only focus on laying the foundation. They coordinate every aspect of the construction process from concept to completion. Similarly, your transformation requires attention to each stage of the belief reconstruction process. The most illuminating metaphor for this integrated approach is that of a master gardener tending to an established landscape. The gardener must simultaneously remove invasive species, prepare the soil, plant new seeds, protect young growth, and maintain the overall harmony of the garden. None of these activities can be neglected without compromising the garden's health and beauty. Your belief system is this garden. Conscious mental filtration is your daily weeding, preventing new invasive thoughts from taking root. Belief archaeology is your soil analysis and preparation, understanding what lies beneath the surface that might help or hinder new growth. Deliberate belief construction is your thoughtful planting and nurturing of chosen mental seeds. And silent implementation is the protective environment you create around tender new growth until it's strong enough to thrive in any conditions. I recall visiting the laboratory of Dr. George Washington Carver, who transformed American agriculture through his work with the humble peanut. What struck me was not just his scientific brilliance, but his integrated approach. When I asked about his method, he said something profound. I never begin an experiment without first clearing my mind of all external opinions about what is possible. I then carefully examine what I already believe about the subject. Only then do I begin my investigations, working in solitude until I have something of genuine value to share. This integration of mental filtering, belief examination, and protected development allowed him to discover uses for the peanut that no one else could see. He wasn't smarter than other scientists. He simply had a more effective system for managing his beliefs about what was possible. Let me outline a practical framework for implementing this integrated system in your own life. Begin each day with conscious mental filtration. Before exposing yourself to external inputs, news, social media, others' opinions, spend 15 minutes in reflective silence. During this time, examine the thoughts already present in your mind, which serve your highest purpose, which undermine it. This daily practice creates the habit of mindful thought selection rather than passive thought consumption. Set aside time each week for belief archaeology. Choose one area of your life where you feel blocked or limited. Ask yourself, what must I believe to be experiencing these results? Then trace these beliefs to their origins. Were they formed through personal experience, adopted from authority figures, or absorbed from cultural messages? Understanding the source often loosens a belief's hold on you. Practice deliberate belief construction daily. Once you've identified a limiting belief, craft its replacement with careful intention. Write it down. Gather evidence that supports this new belief. Visualize yourself embodying it. Create small, immediate actions that align with it. Remember, belief construction isn't wishful thinking, it's the deliberate building of new neural pathways through thought, emotion, and action. Implement silent implementation boundaries. Decide which aspects of your development require protection from premature exposure. This might mean not discussing certain goals with people who've been skeptical in the past. It might mean limiting social media sharing of your process. It doesn't mean permanent secrecy, it means strategic protection of developing beliefs. Integrate these practices through what I call conscious completion cycles. For any significant goal, move through the complete cycle, filter inputs, examine limiting beliefs, construct empowering alternatives, implement quietly until solid results emerge, and only then share your process with others. The beauty of this integrated system is that it becomes self-reinforcing. Each successful cycle builds confidence in the process itself. Each transformed belief makes the next transformation easier. Each period of strategic silence deepens your trust in your own judgment. The system doesn't just change individual beliefs, it gradually rebuilds your entire relationship with the belief formation process. Andrew Carnegie, who commissioned my research into the principles of success, described this perfectly. The man who masters himself becomes a system unto himself, self-correcting, self-directing, and ultimately self-fulfilling. This is the promise of the integrated approach I'm sharing with you today. I've witnessed remarkable transformations through this system. A factory worker who discovered and eliminated a belief that education belongs to the young went on to earn his engineering degree at age 47 and patented 3 valuable inventions. A mother of 4 who uncovered and transformed her belief that creative pursuits are selfish indulgences established a profitable art studio that eventually employed 7 people while allowing her more time with her children than her previous job had. These aren't stories of people who merely thought more positively. They are examples of individuals who systematically reconstructed their belief foundations and built new lives upon them. They didn't achieve overnight success, but they achieved lasting transformation that continued to compound throughout their lives. I want to emphasize that this system works regardless of your starting point, education level, or current circumstances. The principles apply universally because they address the fundamental relationship between your beliefs and your experiences, the relationship that operates according to consistent laws regardless of external conditions. The integrated implementation of these principles creates what I call a belief ecosystem that naturally moves toward growth and expansion. Just as a healthy natural ecosystem becomes increasingly self-sustaining, your reconstructed belief system will develop its own momentum, filtering out harmful inputs and strengthening beneficial beliefs automatically over time. My friends, we stand at the crossroads of potential and achievement. Before you lies a clear choice that will determine the course of your life from this moment forward. Will you continue to allow infiltrated beliefs to dictate your limitations, or will you take ownership of your mental architecture and begin the noble work of building yourself in silence? The principles I've shared today aren't merely theoretical. They represent the distilled wisdom of hundreds of the most successful individuals in America. I've witnessed their transformative power firsthand, both in the lives of titans of industry and in the quieter success stories of ordinary people who refuse to accept the mental programming they'd been given. But knowledge without application is like owning a powerful tool and never removing it from its box. The principles you've learned today will remain merely interesting ideas unless you put them into immediate and consistent practice. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances are more favorable, not when you have more time today. This hour, this moment. The cost of delay is incalculable. Every day you postpone this work, infiltrated beliefs continue their silent sabotage of your potential. They whisper limitations, reinforce boundaries that don't exist, and steer you toward the comfortable mediocrity that society has deemed acceptable for you. Ask yourself this: 1 year from now, do you want to be standing in the same place, bound by the same invisible chains of limiting beliefs? Or do you want to look back at this moment as the pivotal point when you reclaimed ownership of your mind and began constructing beliefs worthy of your potential? The responsibility for this transformation rests entirely with you. No one else can filter your thoughts. No one else can excavate your beliefs. No one else can build new mental models in your consciousness. Others may offer support, but the essential work can only be done by you, within the sanctuary of your own mind. Begin today with this simple but powerful practice. Set aside 30 minutes of complete silence. Turn off all devices. Find a space where you won't be interrupted. Bring a notebook and pen. Ask yourself these 3 questions and write down your honest answers. What belief about my capabilities has limited me most consistently? Where did this belief originate, and whose voice is it really? What alternative belief would serve my highest purpose? This initial examination will activate your awareness. You'll begin noticing how these limiting beliefs operate throughout your day, how they influence your decisions, and how they shape your self-concept. This awareness alone will begin to loosen their hold. Then, commit to the daily practice of conscious mental filtration. Each morning before engaging with the world's noise, sit quietly and examine the thoughts already present in your mind. Practice distinguishing between thoughts that empower you and those that limit you. This single habit, practiced consistently, will revolutionize your mental environment. Remember that the most profound transformations happen in silence. Resist the modern urge to broadcast your process. Give your developing beliefs the protection they need until they're strong enough to withstand external challenges. There will be time for sharing your journey once you've created tangible results. My friends, I've stood where you stand now. I've faced the daunting task of reconstructing beliefs that no longer served me. I've experienced the discomfort of questioning ideas I'd long accepted as truth. I've felt the vulnerability of building new beliefs without knowing if they would bear the weight of real-world challenges. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, the freedom and power on the other side of this work is worth every moment of effort. You were not born to live confined by beliefs you didn't consciously choose. You were not meant to accept limitations imposed by minds less ambitious than your own. You were created for continuous expansion, for the joy of breaking through artificial boundaries, for the thrill of discovering how far your reconstructed beliefs can carry you. The greatest tragedy in life is not failing to achieve a particular goal, it's never discovering what you might have become if you had freed yourself from infiltrated beliefs. Don't let this be your story. Today, make the decision that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Choose to investigate. Choose to build in silence. Choose to become the architect of your own beliefs rather than the inheritor of others' limitations. The future belongs to those who liberate their minds from infiltrated beliefs and construct new mental models aligned with their highest vision. Will you be among them? Subscribe to this channel now to continue this journey of mental liberation. Share in the comments below the most powerful insight you've gained from today's discussion. Your testimony may be the catalyst another person needs to begin their own transformation. Remember, the beliefs you hold shape the life you live. Choose them wisely, build them deliberately, protect them strategically, and watch as they transform not only your circumstances but your very experience of what it means to be alive.